So if you own a 14 to 18 5.3 liter powered Silverado or Sierra and you're looking for one of the coolest and one of the most well-insulated open element cold air intakes in order to gain some horsepower and torque out of your truck, you should be checking out the SLP cold air intake. Now, as the name implies, everything about this intake is all blacked out save for the stainless steel hardware, so this would be a good choice if you want something that's understated or a little more simple in terms of looks. You don't want something that's flashy or polished for that matter. Now, besides the fact that this thing looks pretty cool, like I mentioned a moment ago, it's also one of the most well insulated. And I say that because the air box included in this kit really does a great job of insulating the filter from all that hot engine bay air, and it also reuses the inlet to pull cold air from outside of the truck. If you're curious what kind of gains you can get with this intake, take a look at our dyno graphs. We went ahead and we ran our truck on the dyno stock, and it made 277 horsepower and 290 pound-feet of torque. We then installed the SLP Blackwing intake. We did not tune our truck, nor did we install any other supporting mods, and our truck ended up making 285 horsepower and 314 pound-feet of torque. That makes for some pretty impressive peak gains of 8 horsepower and 24 pound-feet of torque, again without a tune. But if you take a second look at that graph, you'll see some even more impressive curve gains. The curve gains are what you're going to feel from idle to redline, and we made gains upwards of 61 horsepower and a whopping 97 pound-feet of torque. That is a hell of an increase in performance without a tune or any other supporting mods. So again, if you want some crazy gains with an intake that doesn't require a tune, the SLP should be at the top of your list. I'm also happy to say that the SLP installs very easily. You just need a couple of hand tools, so for that reason I'm going to give the install a simple 1 out of 3 wrenches on my difficulty meter. It should not take you more than an hour or two to get this installed. So again, if you want a really cool blacked out intake, one that provides some crazy performance gains, go ahead and stick around. I'll show you guys what exact tools you need in just a second, and then I'll walk you through the install step by step. To install your intake, you're going to need a T15 Torx bit, a standard drive ratchet, as well as 8 and 10 millimeter sockets. Optional but helpful tools include a long extension and spray lubricant. All right, so obviously we have to remove our factory intake tube before we throw our new tube on, right? And that's pretty straightforward. There's 2 band clamps holding the intake tube in place, one on the factory air box and one on the throttle body. All you're gonna need is that 8 millimeter socket and your ratchet. It's also helpful to have an extension because those clamps are kind of tucked down in there. All right, now before you pull the factory air tube assembly out of the vehicle, you want to make sure you disconnect both of the breather hoses. That's for your crankcase blow-by. There's a little depression you can press underneath here and you can unclip them. All right, once you pull the air tube out, you can actually remove these breather hoses entirely. We're not reusing them. The kit does come with new hoses. All right, once you got your factory air box removed, you also have to remove this support bracket right here in order to make enough space for the new air box. You're gonna need a 10 millimeter socket to pull the 2 bolts securing it to the vehicle. So now we have the factory air tube and air box removed. We went ahead and we threw them next to each other. That way you guys can see a quick comparison about what I was talking about earlier. And again, as you can see, this is kind of similar in OEM in terms of its finish and fit. So it's not gonna stand out. It's not gonna be crazy flashy underneath the hood. Again, this is something that I think would work well if you're a fan of those understated OEM-like upgrades. What I like in particular about the new air box is it's kind of a closed element design, but you still have this open top here so you can still see the filter with the hood up, which is what we all wanna see, right? But when you close the hood, it still functions technically as a closed element design. That's gonna make sure you're getting all that nice, cold, dense air, so we're getting more power to the motor. So we can finally ditch the factory air box, but before we do that, we have to remove our Maf sensor. Now the Maf sensor is secured with 2 T15 Torx head screws, so you're gonna need a T15 Torx bit in order to remove those. Keep those screws in hand because you're actually gonna reuse those when you put the new Maf sensor into your new intake system. All right, now that we have our Maf sensor out of the way, we're gonna install these fittings for our breather hoses into the rubber grommets on the air tube. Now these grommets may come pre-installed. If not, go ahead and grab some spray lubricant and press them in place. And it's also helpful to have that same spray lubricant when you actually push the fittings in place as well. All right, now that we have everything set up, we're ready to start our install. But before we do that, there's a little bit of work we have to do inside the truck where the factory air box was. So go ahead and grab that little speed clip provided in the kit. You also want to grab this weather stripping for the actual port where the air comes in through the fender, and I'll show you where all this stuff is supposed to go. All right, so the speed clip is going to go right here in this hole. So you want to thread it in using this slot right here. All right, you also want to install this rubber grommet provided in the kit in this hole here. This is going to help insulate your new air box so it's not rattling on this plate. All right, next you want to install this insulating stripping around the hole where the cold air comes into the air box. Make sure you remove the backing on the adhesive. All right, now we can finally throw our air box in place. We're going to secure the air box with the provided M6 bolt in the kit. Now, this guy installs with an 8mm socket, and it's also helpful to have an extension because it is recessed down pretty far. All right, now that our air box is secured, we're going to install the fitting for our Maf sensor and our new filter. You're going to slide this through the air box like so, and then go ahead and throw your Maf sensor in place. Now you're going to need those T15 screws, and you're going to need that T15 Torx bit that you used earlier. All right, now we're going to rotate this fitting into place. We're going to line up the holes on here with the threaded holes in the air box. Then you want to grab the larger bolts in the kit. You're going to need a 10mm socket to tighten these down. All right, now that everything is secured in the air box, we're going to throw our filter in place and we're going to tighten down this band clamp. Again, we're going to use our 8mm socket. All right, now we're going to install our intake tube on our throttle body and our air box, and it's helpful to spray these down. It makes it easier to get those rubber couplers in place. And once you got the tube seated on both sides, go ahead and tighten down your band clamps with your 8mm socket. All right, while you're over here, you can also reinstall the connection for the Maf sensor. All right, now our entire intake assembly is installed. The last step here is installing your new breather hoses. Now, if you saw in the instructions, what they want you to do is take the factory hoses, cut these open here, and get these fittings out. We work on our trucks a lot. We don't want to ruin these, so we actually have a couple of spares sitting around. If you also wanted to, you could buy some small band clamps and use those instead if you don't want to break these apart. But at any rate, your breather hoses are pre-cut, so you don't have to cut them. This short guy is going to be for the passenger side, and the long hose is for the driver's side. All right, now we can start reinstalling the stuff we pulled off the truck earlier. We're gonna reinstall our little support bracket, and again, you're gonna need a 10mm socket to get both of those bolts back in. So once you got that support bracket and your radiator cover reinstalled, that'll wrap up the install of the SLP Blackwing cold air intake fitting your 14 to 18 5.3 liter powered Silverado or Sierra. I'm Travis, thanks for watching, and keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.